Welcome to Mic Drop. I'm Meg Green. Today I'm joined by longtime producer Missy Motha. Hi, Missy. Welcome to Mic Drop.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I wanted to talk to you about what led you to Syracuse for your education and how that landed you a job at ESPN.
Sure. Yeah, I grew up. I'll be honest with you. The college process. I kind of. I. I'm an only child. I wanted to stay close to home, even though I'm from Connecticut. But I wanted to go to a school that had sports. I mean, that's. So I didn't put a lot of. I only applied to four schools. Syracuse was the best decision clearly I've ever made in my life. I still have friends from there. I think it led me, it opened doors, communications wise, to ESPN.
Right.
Because candidly, it was, when I applied to ESPN, I thought it'd be as simple as, tell us why you like sports. And I grew up in a household with being an only child where that was the only thing on TV. Dad, had sport. It's still to this day. Dad still only has sports on. The interview was not like that. And I do think my Syracuse background got me the job because I was working at the West Farms Mall right up the road, and my mom said, answer the phone when it rings. It's going to be a gentleman from ESPN who wants you to start working tomorrow.
Oh,
And I
wow.
think I got lucky that A, I had Syracuse background, B, I was local, and C, I think it helped being a woman at the time because they put me in the production assistant program, which now has grown by the masses, but at the time was like 40 of us, and there were very few women.
Right.
It just wasn't a career that women really chose at that time, back in early 90s. Hey, I want to be working sports television production. It just wasn't really a thing. But I think all those things helped me. I always said to people at ESPN, like, my peers may have be able to tell you the history maybe of sports more, but my background actually in liberal arts at Syracuse helped me become a better writer. And I think I was more creative than my peers at ESPN because of that. And then it I got lucky. I kind of just climbed the ladder at ESPN and got to, by the end was doing things like I could only dream about, overseeing the highlight operation, which
Right.
was like everything, now it's even bigger because it's all digital and stuff, but overseeing all the, the highlights that went on Sports Center, Baseball Tonight, any, you name it. And getting to really create and tell stories. And that's, I think, one of my strengths is, you know, a highlight isn't so much, especially now, isn't so much telling you like, hey, what happened in the first inning, second inning, third inning. It's telling the story. Like if you and I went to a game together, Meg, and then, and your son asked you what happened in the game, you're not going to say, well, first, in the first inning, this happened. And then, it's what is the story? And that I think I just am better at. Than most people, and even now working in news, I'm able to do that, is tell that story creatively, or something that fans would want to see. So
Right. As you grew through the ranks of ESPN, part of your job responsibilities were to manage people,
yeah.
right?
Yep.
So when you're at the highest level there and you're, in if people are not familiar with the highlight operation, it is incredibly busy and sort of frenetic in the middle of all these games happening
Mhm.
simultaneously. But when did you learn that coaching and feedback was really material to your own professional success?
So you learn a lot by watching some of the, your mentors, and that's
Right,
why I really think it's important to have mentors, because you learn styles, and and some styles don't work for you.
right,
I'm not like um a yelling at people kind of, leader, but I'm also not passive. Like I think I always, expected results, but more than anything is I wanted people to really, give it their own. And the PAs, which are the most of the people that I was managing at the time,
mhm,
are, a lot of them right out of college, younger, haven't been in the workforce a really long time. And
right,
it's that can be challenging because it's really easy to deal with the superstar performers that you can kind of let do your own thing. But
right.
it's the ones that are just out of college who might be afraid to haven't found their voice yet. And how do you develop that? And um, I learned a lot by sometimes failing. Like there, I think, you early on, I probably had to grow into becoming a good manager. I don't think I didn't just pick it up like that, because like I said, I grew up there. I started at, 22 years old at ESPN. And at 22, I was followed, the people that I still consider my mentors. What did they do to get results? What did they do to inspire me, to drive me? And that's kind of what I tried to bring to my management style at ESPN. Even when I like oversaw Sports Center, things like that, is driving results by, what styles of management did the people that I grew up really idolizing and, work. And some of it doesn't work. Some people, I would say, probably you just, I probably might not have liked my style, but you try different things. And I'm still learning. Even here, I think I work now in news, and I am probably 30 years older than the people in my pod. Like we have like a pod of producers that are all, a lot of them is, I think, probably their first jobs, or if not one of their early jobs. Even now, I try to instill, hey, here's some of the things I've learned along the way about producing shows. Because even though the content has changed, and I'm not
Right.
dealing with, walk off home runs and touchdown celebrations, you're still producing, and there are still ways to be creative, even in a news world, or whether it's using different parts of the studio, or doing something that's memorable. Even in though the content may have changed, and it's still producing television.
Are there individuals in your life that you seek out that are in your board of directors, if you will, that you go to regularly for feedback?
Absolutely. I think you have to have that. And they
Mhm.
don't, some people have like this board of directors might be, you know, um, a half a dozen people or more, or a dozen people. For me, I have like two to three people that will always be, that not only will they champion me, but that I feel like if something is maybe not going as smooth as it could be, I can always pick up the phone or shoot a
Mhm.
text or an email and say, hey, I ran into this at work today. This was challenging. I tried something, it didn't work. I still get excited producing shows. I try things that might not work. Not everything works. So I may be driving home and say, you know what, I'm going to shoot one of these people a no. Hey, I tried something, it didn't work. And I'm still trying to. I've only been at this news station almost 2 years now, but you're still trying to find like what works for me.
Mhm.
And in I tried something the other day here where I turned all the lights off in the studio, and I showed how it was raining. Weather's a big thing in local news. So
Right.
it was raining in different parts of the state. And it was funny, a newer producer came in the next day and says, "Are you okay?" And I said, "What's up?" He's like, "I saw the beginning of the show, your anchors weren't on, and the lights were off." And I said, "That was intentional. Like I tried that, so it's like I said, no, I did, that was on purpose, And he's like, "Wait, you took the anchors off the desk?" I go, "Yeah." So, and then, driving home that same day, I called one of these board of people that I consider my board of directors. And I
Right.
will say, two of those people on that list are still my mom and dad, who have probably watched every show I've done. They've probably watched more ESPN programming than anyone else at the time, because they still now watch all my shows here. And my mom will tell you, like, she knows when something might not, like, if there's a technical thing that doesn't go right. I talk to them still driving home every day. And my mom knows when something didn't go right. And she'll be like, yeah, she does. Now, she probably can't tell you the X's and O's, like my
Right.
dad can tell you the sports, but she knows when, oh, we saw what happened there, like the camera went, yeah, and I'm like, yeah, yeah, it happened. They called up the wrong camera, whatever. I think it's important to have what you call these board of directors, or these people that you can always consider in your circle. And again, I don't care how many people it is. I really think it's important to embrace that and tell them that they're in your circle. It's, let them know that, because not every call home is going to be, or to these people, is happy. Hey, again, I screwed something up, or I did this. But on the
Right.
same token, celebrate your wins. Like if you do something that's really awesome, or if something that's eye catching, whether it's a graphic, or a camera shot, or something that is like other people are talking about, tell them, hey, listen, I try to, celebrate those. And I think that's really
Sure.
important to have. Yeah, again, whether if your circle's small or even larger.
Do you find that these individuals, your parents and whomever else that you reach
Yep.
out to, will also offer you critical feedback? Like, oh, I didn't think that went well. You didn't call them to ask, to
Yep.
seek that out, but they are confident in their ability to give you that sort of criticism.
Uh, I think that's really important. I think honesty is important because if they're not being honest, if the people in your corner that you consider your team of people that, your champions aren't honest and give you the critical feedback, they're probably not the right people to have as your mentors or whatever. You want that. You want both sides. I want the critical feedback. And sometimes they might not have the eye, but especially the people that I still have, even my ESPN people that I still talk to,
Mhm.
they do know, television, what works and what doesn't work. I want them to say, hey, did you think about, I like that. Did you try to think about that? Or that same thing I was telling you about where I took the anchors off the set and I took the lights down. There was on the set was a computer with the screen up.
Mhm.
And one person said, yeah, did you think about maybe closing the computer screen? And you know what? He was absolutely right. It was
Right.
this cool, the studio looked cool. It was dark, there was rain and all these monitors, and one computer on the desk had like that would have taken 2 seconds for me just to look at the shot and say, hey, can we shut the computer screen
Right.
down
Right.
or take the cup of coffee off the desk? So I think that's important. And
Yeah.
for next time, so that now I'm on the lookout for things like that.
You have pivoted a bit in your career, and I think that's important too, because those changes, sometimes they're fortuitous, sometimes they're just plain challenging because of the timing, right? But you left a major network. Did you go to the Diamondbacks?
Yep. Yeah, it
Yes.
was all of Arizona. So it was it was Diamondbacks. Um, at the time they had hockey, the Coyotes, and the Suns.
And what was that like this is going to sound crazy, but for, those of us who have followed ESPN, you went
Yep.
from 10,000 sports, which, to me sounds very manageable. To other
Yep.
people may not. But what was that like to pivot to your focus being narrower, even though there's high
Um,
volume in those sports?
I'll be honest with you. I struggled a little bit with it. I also struggled a little bit, just from a personal standpoint of being away from Connecticut, being on the other side of the country, where if mom called me and said, "Hey, your dad's in the hospital," I can't just, obviously if it was serious, I'd hop on a plane and go home. But like you felt like your hands were tied a little bit. I also felt that the more narrow field, I'm kind of big picture. And I'm East Coast, I'm Portuguese, I like New York teams, I speak with my hands. Like things were a little bit laid back in Arizona. And I don't mean this critical, but like they would put things on TV that I was not I was not happy putting my name attached to those things. Like really, like that's not good. Like you're like it's you know take pride in your work. And things were they were okay, kind of like, it was just, oh
This is
well, that
enough.
wasn't perfect. It's okay.
Right.
We'll do it the next time.
Right.
And I struggled with that a lot. Because I went in as a coordinating producer there as one of the managers, and I did offer a lot of feedback, positive and negative, don't get me wrong, but a lot of it I was like, did you think about doing things maybe this way? Or, instead of you have a big monitor with a play happening with it had graphics from another network in it. Like, did you think about maybe showing a better angle without the graphic? Like just little things that I look at as like television 101 that was not in there, that just wasn't something they were used to. So I
Right.
struggled early on and like throughout my time there. Really why I only stayed there like a year, because it was like it was a different vibe. And it was also the topic was very narrow. I love sports, so I was able to adjust to the teams, no problem. But it was just like if something big was happening in baseball, well, they don't care. It was Diamondbacks. Like it's so,
Right.
and again, and the big one for me, and I don't mind saying it, is even at 50 years old, is being so far from home and my friends and the things, my comfort level. It's
Right.
we work in a stressful environment. I don't care what anyone says. I don't care. TV is stressful.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's nice to have your people, close by. And even though I could always pick up the phone and call mom and text, I felt a little bit like an island. So so it's, and that was just from a personal standpoint. So that's why I came back here, and this news opportunity opened up, and I might not have chosen, like, if you asked Missy from 20 years ago, do you think you'd be, covering homicides and fires and things like that? I don't think I would have said yes, but you know what? It's still producing, and I've tried different things. The new general manager has pulled me aside and said, we just got a big Yukon deal. He's like, would you be interested in producing our Yukon special? Yes. Like, I want to do, yeah, like, so and things are, I think, happen for a reason. And I like the people, I like mentoring some of these producers. One guy that sits in my pod, again, this is his first producing experience. Talking to him, he's a really good writer,
Mhm.
and I don't write well for news yet. I still am too verbose because we have to write everything here. And at ESPN, you had the anchors wrote.
Right.
I still write like I'm a English major, and I write in like sentences, and you can't do that in news. So I learned from him, but yet I've been teaching him a little bit about, hey, did you think about different ways to show the studio, or
Right.
different things? So it feels like it's a good spot for me.
Well, I was going to ask you, all of these, the best part about change is it puts you in a new environment, usually, and you grow from it. And you just identified one scenario where you're very comfortable writing in general, but you're not a news writer, right?
Yep.
Like that's a growth area for you. I was going to ask about like, some of the things that have challenged you in this new role, and that's a great one because
Well,
I think,
that's a big one, and it also affects, like, in the news world, they are really into story count. Like, I'll give you, like, they want like 10 news stories in their A block. I
okay,
have never once, at whether, I don't care, I've done every sports center, I think I've done every show at ESPN other than like NFL Countdown and Game Day. No one has ever said you have to put this many stories in an A block. It was, I never even, it's not that no one told me, I never even thought about that. So
mhm,
here they want story count. It's very important, every block. Well, the problem is that I'm so verbose in writing that what I might have taken, 45 seconds to write, my peer is doing in 15 seconds. That's also 3 other stories, because
right.
I mean, the show isn't, only gets off at a certain time. So I was putting less in the show, not intentionally, but because my writing was too, too wordy, too not ready for news yet, that I was getting a lot less stories in the show. So it affected the show as a whole. So I'm really trying to work on, which is funny to say at, 51 years old, I'm trying to work on my writing, but I'm really trying to work on my news writing, because it is different than anything I've ever had to do before.
Well, and
It really is.
who's helping you with that? Do you
So
have,
I read a lot of scripts. I was cognizant that I was doing this early on, so now I
right,
really make a moment now, and I still ask for help. Like the other day, there was a crazy scenario where there was like a car. There was a death. It was a fatality, but a car. There was a whole bunch of stories going on. So I wrote a script, and it was 55 seconds. I mean, they really want like 20, 30.
right,
So I went to, the guy in my pod who did it, who was, again, probably 30 years younger than me, who did it in 18 seconds. And I
oh,
took what
wow,
he did and I said, wow. Now there weren't as like everything a viewer would really want was in that 18 seconds. I really am trying to look at that and say, okay, what did I, okay, probably didn't need the time of the day. Like a type probably didn't need this, and I just had too much stuff. So I look at other scripts. I sometimes I'd say to one of the Dayside executive producers, I'll say, listen, this story is getting me. I got way too much in here. Can you just go in and tweak it? They're
mhm,
like, absolutely. I know I do it. I just my and it's funny because my sports scripts, when we're talking about UConn or the Patriots or the Yankees, the
right.
Red Sox, are right on. Like I'm quicker than everyone else, but like so it's just getting familiar with the content. Again, I've lived here my whole life, so I know the Connecticut towns. I know when things are important.
Right.
I Producing is producing. I always tell people, if you could do something still like one thing memorable a show, and I carry that with me even here. Like what can I do today that might be different? Your hands are tied a little bit when you're talking about fires or whatever, but there are other stories, or there could be a graphic that tells a story. We do a lot of like business stories or stories that maybe parents to get how to keep your children safe, like
Right.
a school bus strike was averted today. What can we do? Can we do bullet points? Can we, instead of just saying a bus strike was averted today, you can still tell stories in a creative manner. And I really try to do that here.
I want to ask you, what is a piece of advice that you've been given in your career that you carry with you to this day? One of those ones that just sticks.
I think I ran a lot of show meetings at ESPN. The producer would run the show meetings, and I always tell people as a producer, your day starts at that ideas meeting. So if you come in and you don't have ideas, or like you're producing from that moment. It's not just the hour or half hour you're on TV. It is even in that meeting. So I always like to make sure I'm on top of everything. Now there are going to obviously some stories that might slip through the cracks, but I like to make sure I know everything. So somebody gave me a bit of advice once, that I didn't even know I did this, but in every sports center meeting, I guess I would say, yeah, I'm not sure this is a good idea, but maybe we do this and we, do it with this. I don't know, maybe like do that, or this may not be a good idea. Like I would second guess myself in saying it in the way I presented the idea.
Mhm.
And a senior coordinating producer pulled me aside and said, I just want you to know, like every meeting you'll be like, I'm not sure this is a good idea or this. And it's always the best idea in the room. Have confidence. And now it doesn't have to be the best idea in the room, but have confidence in your ideas. You're already, come out and say, I'm not sure this is a good idea. You're already you're going in with doubt. Say, hey, let's try this. And I'll be honest with you, I never even knew I did that.
Right.
It was a habit. Like I always had like a little self-confidence problem, not just in television, just growing up I remember in elementary school, the TPO. So I would, sit in a meeting with all like baseball meetings with all these people that had been working in baseball tonight for years. And I throw out an idea and I'd be like, well, I'm not sure, but maybe we could try. And I just didn't even know I did it. They
Right.
gave me that advice and I use that now. And even
Yeah.
sometimes I catch myself in the ideas meeting here being like, I'm not sure if we did this before. And I'm like, wait, just say it. Let's
Yeah.
do this. So that has always stuck with me. Two reasons. One, I didn't know I did it.
Right.
And two, like as a producer or a leader of a show, have confidence in what you're doing. And I work with people here that don't always have confidence. I'll be honest with you, is or come into meetings with ideas. Like there's nothing worse than when they go around a room, and I'm a big person of believer in going around the room and soliciting ideas when someone's like, yeah, I got nothing. There's got to be something. Like yeah,
Right.
it's so but that was a piece of advice that has always stuck with me. Seriously, I don't even talk to that, senior coordinating producer anymore, but I'll never forget him pulling me aside and
Yeah.
saying, I did you know you did this? And I'm like, nope, I had no idea.
What is an example? One more example, and then we'll wrap this up. What's
Yep.
an example, do you think, of how you've coached someone where you left an imprint, on
Uh
your suggestion?
one like I think it goes back to a lot of ideas. I was working with he was a high performer.
Mhm.
At least I knew from the start. I could just tell he had his act together. But in meetings, he was not a talker. And when it came, going back to ESPN, when it came time for like, um, you know, AP decisions, he got passed over a few times. And he came to me and he said, "Listen, I've done I have these ideas. I'm working on profile shows." And I said, "Well, the only thing I could say to you is like, you don't contribute in meetings very much. You could after the fact, you'll send me, hey, let's maybe do this for the show, or I had a." And he's like, I don't feel comfortable talking in front, yeah, in a group. He goes, I've always had that. There's a very fine line there because you don't want to tear someone down because they have a fear of talking in a group of people. But like I said, listen, you give me a list of ideas every day. I go to you. You've got it all together. The problem is that there are people, that make decisions that are in these meetings that they think that they don't know what you've done. I go, you include me on these notes. Maybe, I get not feeling comfortable. I think sometimes you have to, I don't mean like the tough love, but I think sometimes you have to try to speak up a little bit. I think
Right.
it's important. But if you really have like anxiety or you get like that stress about speaking up, that note you send to me, can you include other bosses and just say, hey, I don't feel very, it's weird because you don't want people to give you fuel to the fire and say, well, if he can send these notes, but why can't he speak up? I get it. So I just said, I think you got to try maybe not even so many ideas is it, can you present one of those ideas in the meeting just
Mhm.
so it, because perception i- is a lot of what we do. And if we go around the room or if we people are talking, the perception is that you're not engaged. And I know you're engaged because you've sent me all these great ideas and you're like
Right,
my go-to person and you're a super high performer. Other people don't know what you've done and there's that perception. So he started speaking up and he got on some, big golf remotes at ESPN. He got promoted and it's it's hard because I sided with him. I said, listen, I get what you're going through. And it is challenging. You don't have to bring, five ideas every day, but if you
right,
can present one of those, that big one, just so I know it's hard to say, just so that the other people in the room know you're there because
right.
it just right now you give off a vibe that you're not. And he's like, and he actually pulled me aside. Well, he sent me an email. I think while I was actually in Arizona, thanking me because he got another promotion. And he's like, thank you. He goes, I think I just needed that kind of push because now I'm not so scared to speak up. I think it was just that original, like you're in a room with the Scott Van Pelt of the room, or like that you grew up watching, or like these larger than life people, and you're afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to fail. I've done some terrible things on TV, like that are just, but you know what? It happens, and you learn from those. I've made mistakes. It's you just try to it's learning from those mistakes and I loved there. I've gotten a lot of notes, but I loved getting that note in Arizona from him saying, just wanted to thank you. I know you haven't been here in a year. But I did get promoted. I've gotten promoted. I'm doing all of these things. I'm on the SVP show. I'm doing all this stuff.
Right.
And it just, that's not why we do it, but it makes, there's something about it. Like, to me, that's more important than having the greatest show is to know that the people that you're trying to mentor, the people that you're trying to help out are like you're giving ways to it. I think that's important. So
No, I think that's a beautiful ending to a wonderful conversation.
yep.
I appreciate your time. I appreciate your insight. I appreciate you being on this, on our
Yeah, thank you so much for
podcast.
having me.